The morning sun cast long shadows across the polished marble floor of Sterling Properties, 42nd floor conference room. Victoria Sterling stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, her reflection sharp against the Manhattan skyline.
At 28.
She commanded one of the city's most aggressive real estate empires, her platinum hair pulled back in a severe bun that matched her razor-sharp business suits. "The Riverside project is hemorrhaging money," announced her chief financial officer, Patricia Wong, sliding a tablet across the mahogany table. "We're looking at a 12% loss if we don't move those families out by month's end." Victoria turned from the window, her steel-gray eyes scanning the quarterly reports. "Then we accelerate the timeline. Double the buyout offers to the holdouts, and if they refuse, we'll find legal pressure points." The conference room fell silent, except for the soft hum of the air conditioning. Victoria had built Sterling Properties from nothing after her parents' business failed when she was 22. Every decision since had been calculated, every move designed to prevent the kind of financial devastation that had destroyed her. "Family, ma'am." Her assistant, Kevin Park, hesitated at the doorway. "There's a situation downstairs. Channel 7 News is here." Victoria's jaw tightened. "What kind of situation? The Riverside families? They're protesting in the lobby with signs, thing about displaced children and broken promises." Through the windows, Victoria could see news vans gathering like vultures on the street below. Her phone buzzed with text messages from board members, each one a variation of the same panic. The company's stock price flashed red on her computer screen. "Get building security to clear them out," Victoria commanded. "We tried," Kevin replied. "They're on public property, the sidewalk." Victoria's fingers drummed against the conference table. "Then we ignore them, they'll get tired and leave." But they didn't leave. By noon, the crowd had doubled. Parents held photographs of their children. Elderly residents sat in folding chairs with homemade signs reading "Homes Not Profits" and "Community Over Greed." Local news stations broadcast live updates, interviewing tearful families who spoke about generations of memories being erased for luxury condos they could never afford. Victoria's phone rang. The caller ID showed her board chairman, Robert Hayes. "Sterling." His voice was ice cold. "My office. Now." The elevator ride to the 45th floor felt longer than usual. Robert Hayes had been her mentor, the man who'd given her the initial loan to start Sterling Properties. His corner office was a shrine to old money Manhattan, with leather-bound books and oil paintings of long-dead businessmen. "Sit," he said, without looking up from his computer. Victoria remained standing. "Robert, this is temporary. The media will move on to something else by tomorrow. Our stock is down 8% since this morning," he said, finally meeting her eyes. "The mayor's office is asking questions. 3 board members have called for an emergency meeting. We've weathered worse storms. Not like this." He turned his monitor toward her. The screen showed a video with over 2 million views titled, "Heartless Billionaire Destroys Community." It featured a young mother named Rosa Martinez holding her crying daughter, explaining how Victoria's company had forced them from their home of 15 years. Victoria's stomach tightened, but her expression remained neutral. "It's business, Robert. Emotional manipulation doesn't change the economics. The economics are about to change dramatically if we don't fix this." Robert stood, walking to his window. "The board is implementing a new initiative, community engagement." "In corporate responsibility? Meaning what exactly?" "Meaning you're going to spend the next month volunteering at the Riverside Community Center. 40 hours a week. No assistance. No shortcuts. You'll work directly with the families affected by our development projects." Victoria laughed, a sharp sound that echoed off the office walls. "That's ridiculous. I have a company to run. Patricia can handle day-to-day operations." "This isn't a suggestion, Victoria. It's a requirement. The board voted this morning." "You're blackmailing me. I'm saving your career." Robert's voice softened slightly. "You're brilliant, Victoria. You've built something remarkable. But you've forgotten that business is ultimately about people. This isn't punishment. It's education." Victoria felt the walls of the pristine office closing in around her. "And if I refuse, then you'll be removed as CEO. We'll find someone else to lead Sterling Properties through this crisis." The words hit her like a physical blow. Sterling Properties was her identity, her proof that she'd risen above her family's failures. Without it, she was just another trust fund kid who'd squandered her inheritance. "How long?" she asked quietly. 1 month. 4 weeks of genuine community service. No cameras, no publicity stunts. Just you, showing up and doing the work. Evening, Victoria sat in her penthouse apartment, staring at the city lights through her floor-to-ceiling windows. Her home was a monument to success, everything sleek and modern and expensive. But tonight it felt hollow. She pulled up the news coverage on her laptop, watching the footage of families being interviewed outside her building. Rosa Martinez appeared again, this time explaining how her daughter had to change schools 3 times because of displacement. An elderly man named Tommy Chen spoke about his corner store, neighborhood fixture for 30 years, being forced to close. Victoria had seen similar stories before. She'd always viewed them as unfortunate. Side effects of progress. Cities evolved, neighborhoods changed, and some people inevitably got left behind. It was the natural order of capitalism. But watching Rosa's daughter cry on camera, Victoria felt something she'd spent years suppressing. It's not guilt exactly, but a strange hollow sensation in her chest. Her phone buzzed with a text from Kevin, Riverside Community Center, address attached. "You start Monday at 8 a.m. Director's name is James Rivera." Victoria stared at the message for a long moment, then closed her laptop. Tomorrow, she'd have to figure out how to navigate this bizarre requirement. But tonight, she needed to prepare. For a world she'd spent her entire career avoiding, she walked to her closet, filled with tailored suits and designer shoes. Nothing seemed appropriate for volunteer work at a community center. For the first time in years, Victoria Sterling didn't know what to wear or how to act. The reflection in her mirror showed a successful woman at the height of her power. But as she looked closer, Victoria saw something else. The same fear she'd felt at 22 when her parents lost everything. The same terror that had driven her to build walls around her heart and measure every relationship in terms of profit and loss. Monday morning would bring a new challenge. One that couldn't be solved with hostile takeovers or legal maneuvering. For the first time since building her empire, Victoria would have to confront the human cost of her success as she prepared for bed. Victoria tried to convince herself this was just another business challenge. For weeks of community service, followed by a return to normal operations, she could endure anything for a month. But deep down, she suspected that James Rivera and the Riverside Community Center might challenge her in ways she'd never anticipated. The perfectly ordered world she'd constructed was about to collide with the messy, complicated reality of the people she'd displaced, the glass tower that had sheltered her. For so long, was about to become transparent. Victoria's black Tesla looked absurdly out of place on Riverside Avenue, surrounded by aging apartment buildings and small businesses with hand-painted signs in multiple languages. She sat in the driver's seat for 5 minutes, watching people hurry past on the sidewalk, many carrying worn backpacks and shopping bags. The Riverside Community Center occupied a converted warehouse, its brick facade painted with a colorful mural depicting families of different ethnicities holding hands. Children's artwork filled the windows, and a small garden grew in planters along the entrance. Victoria checked her phone. 8:15. She was already late. The interior was nothing like her sterile office building. Mismatched furniture filled a large open space where dozens of people sat at tables eating breakfast, reading newspapers, or helping children with homework. The air smelled of coffee and something Victoria couldn't identify, something warm and lived in. "You must be Victoria." A man approached, extending his hand. "I'm James Rivera, the director here." James was younger than she'd expected, probably in his early 30s. With kind brown eyes and calloused hands that spoke of manual labor. His smile was genuine, but Victoria detected wariness behind it. "I'm here because I have to be," Victoria said, shaking his hand briefly. "Let's just get this over with." James's smile didn't waver. "I appreciate your honesty. Why don't I show you around first?" They walked through the center, James explaining the various programs. There was a food pantry, a computer lab with ancient monitors, a childcare area, where toddlers played with donated toys, and a small medical clinic staffed by volunteer nurses. We serve about 300 families, James explained, as they passed a bulletin board covered with job listings and apartment rental notices. Many are dealing with displacement from development projects. We help them find new housing, job training, childcare support. Victoria noticed he didn't mention Sterling Properties specifically, but the implication was clear. What exactly am I supposed to do here? She asked. Whatever needs doing. Today we're preparing lunch for the kids' summer program. You can help in the kitchen. The kitchen was cramped and outdated, with industrial-sized pots and a constant stream of volunteers, chopping vegetables, stirring sauces, and washing dishes. Victoria had never cooked anything more complex than microwaving frozen dinners. Victoria, this is Rosa Martinez, James said, introducing her to a woman in her mid-30s with tired eyes and flour-dusted hands. Rosa coordinates our meal program. Rosa looked up from the sandwich assembly line, recognition flickering across her face. You're the one from Sterling Properties. The kitchen fell silent. Victoria felt every eye in the room focused on her, measuring and judging. She lifted her chin, maintaining her composure. Yes, I am. Rosa studied her for a long moment, then handed her an apron. Can you make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches? I think I can manage that. For the next hour, Victoria stood beside Rosa, spreading peanut butter on slice after slice of white bread. The work was monotonous, but Rosa kept up a steady stream of conversation about the neighborhood, families they served, and the challenges of stretching limited resources. My daughter Isabella loves art, Rosa said, pointing to a drawing taped to the refrigerator. She's 8 now, but she's been coming here since she was 4. This place, it's like extended family for us. Victoria glanced at the drawing, a child's rendering of a house with stick figures holding hands in front of it. Where do you live now? Rosa's hand stilled for a moment. We're staying with my sister in Queens. It's temporary, until we can find something we can afford. Isabella had to leave her school, her friends. She asks me every day when we can go home. Home? Our apartment on Riverside. We've lived there for 6 years. Isabella took her first steps in that living room. Rosa's voice was matter-of-fact, but Victoria detected the pain underneath. The new owners offered us money to leave, but it wasn't enough for a deposit on a new place, so they found other ways to make us go. Victoria's hands grew clumsy as she tried to focus on the sandwiches. She'd approved those other ways herself: utility shutoffs, maintenance delays, aggressive rent increases, standard tactics to clear buildings for renovation. How many families were displaced? Victoria asked quietly. From our building? 43? From the whole block? Maybe 200? Rosa sealed another sandwich in a plastic bag. Most of them are scattered now. Some moved in with relatives, some left the city altogether. A few ended up in shelters. The lunch rush began at noon. Victoria found herself serving food to a stream of children, teenagers, and adults. A boy of about 10 smiled shyly as she handed him a sandwich and an apple. Thank you, miss, he said politely. What's your name? Victoria asked. Danny. I come here every day after school. Mr. James helps me with my math homework. Victoria watched Danny find a seat at a crowded table, immediately pulling out a worn notebook and pencil. He began working on what looked like multiplication problems, occasionally asking an older girl for help. He's brilliant, James said, appearing beside Victoria. Tested into the gifted program at his school, but they might have to move to a different district soon. His grandmother can't afford the rent increase. Where are his parents? His mother works 2 jobs, cleaning offices at night and stocking shelves during the day. His father died in a construction accident 3 years ago. Danny's grandmother takes care of him during the day, but she's on a fixed income. Victoria watched Danny struggle with a particularly difficult problem, his small face scrunched in concentration. Something about his determination reminded her of herself at that age. Staying up late to study by the light of a desk lamp while her parents argued about money in the next room. After lunch, James assigned Victoria to help in the computer lab, where an elderly Chinese man was teaching a group of adults basic computer skills. This was Tommy Chen, the shop owner she'd seen on the news. "Today we learn how to send email," Tommy announced in accented English. Very important for job applications. Victoria sat beside a middle-aged woman named Carmen who was applying for receptionist positions. Carmen's fingers moved slowly across the keyboard as she typed her first email, asking Victoria to check her spelling and grammar. "I haven't used a computer since high school," Carmen admitted, "but I need to learn. Everything is online now." Tommy moved between the computers, patiently answering questions and offering encouragement. When he reached Victoria, he paused. "You're from Sterling Properties," he said simply. "Yes. My store was on Riverside Avenue for 30 years. I sold everything: groceries, school supplies, phone cards. Families shopped there. Children came for candy. It was a community gathering place." Victoria had seen the financials on Tommy's building. The ground floor retail space would be converted into a boutique fitness studio, catering to the luxury condo residents. "What will you do now?" she asked. Tommy shrugged. "I'm 73. It's too old to start over, too young to retire. Maybe I teach computers here, help people like me who got left behind." As the afternoon wore on, Victoria found herself drawn into conversations she'd never expected to have. A teenage girl named Dakota showed her photos of a mural she was painting on the side of the building, explaining how art helped her process the anger of watching her neighborhood disappear. "It's not that we don't want things to get better," Dakota said, adding details to a figure that looked like it was reaching toward the sky. "We just want to be part of the improvement, not pushed out to make room for it." Victoria had never thought about development in those terms. In her world, neighborhoods were assets to be optimized, not communities to be preserved. But spending the day at the center, she began to see the intricate web of relationships that made up a community. The way Tommy knew every child's name. How Rosa organized carpools for working parents. How James mediated disputes between neighbors and connected families with resources. At 5 o'clock, Victoria was exhausted in a way she'd never experienced. From a day at the office, her feet hurt from standing on concrete floors, her hands were stained from food prep, and her carefully styled hair had wilted in the kitchen heat. "How was your first day?" James asked as she prepared to leave. "Different than I expected," Victoria admitted. "What did you expect?" Victoria paused, considering. "I thought it would be more chaotic, less organized." James laughed. "We're pretty good at making the most of what we have. We've had to be." As Victoria walked to her car, she noticed details she'd missed that morning. The way neighbors greeted each other on the street, the small businesses that served as community hubs, children playing in a pocket park that had been created in a vacant lot. Her phone buzzed with work messages. But for the first time in years, Victoria didn't immediately respond. Instead, she sat in her car, watching the life of the neighborhood flow around her. Tomorrow, she would return to the center. And the day after that, for the next month, she would be part of this world she'd spent her career dismantling. The realization both terrified and intrigued her. 3 weeks into her community service, Victoria found herself arriving at the Riverside Community Center before 8 each morning. Not because she had to, but because she wanted to. The routine had become oddly comforting, helping Rosa prepare breakfast, checking on Danny's homework progress, and listening to Tommy's stories about the old neighborhood. "You're different now," Dakota observed one afternoon as they worked together in the community garden, planting tomatoes in recycled containers. "When you first came here, you looked like you were afraid to touch anything." Victoria laughed, surprised by the sound. When had she started laughing again? "I was terrified. I'd never been anywhere like this." "What was scary about it?" Victoria considered the question as she patted soil around a seedling. "I think I was scared of caring. In my business, caring is a liability. It makes you vulnerable, but you care now." It wasn't a question. Victoria had stopped trying to hide her growing attachment to the people at the center. She'd memorized the names of regular visitors, learned about their struggles and dreams, and found herself lying awake at night thinking about solutions to their problems. "Yeah," Victoria said quietly. "I care now." That evening, James invited Victoria to stay for the monthly community meeting. About 50 people gathered in the main room, sitting in a circle of folding chairs. The topic was the ongoing displacement crisis, and specifically Sterling Properties' latest acquisition. They bought the Martinez family's old building, announced Mrs. Patterson, an elderly woman who'd lived in the neighborhood for 40 years. Whole block is going to be luxury condos. Starting price is $4,000 for a studio apartment. Victoria felt her stomach drop. She'd approved that acquisition 2 days before starting her community service. But she'd forgotten about it in the chaos of the past month. What about the families still living there? Asked Carmen, the woman Victoria had helped with email. Got 60 days to relocate, Mrs. Patterson replied. But where are they going to go? Nothing in this price range exists anymore. Victoria watched the faces around the circle. These weren't abstract statistics or legal obstacles to be overcome. These were Rosa's neighbors, Danny's classmates' families, Tommy's former customers. They were people she'd grown to know and care about. Maybe we should organize another protest, suggested a young father named Miguel. Get the media attention again. Protests didn't work last time, Dakota pointed out. They just waited us out. James looked directly at Victoria. What do you think you've been quiet tonight? Victoria felt every eye in the room turn to her. A month ago, she would have deflected, made excuses, or simply left. But these people had welcomed her, taught her, trusted her with their stories. Think, Victoria said slowly, that you need someone on the inside. The room fell silent. Victoria could hear her own heartbeat. I'm the CEO of Sterling Properties, she continued. I approved the acquisition of that building. I've approved dozens of acquisitions that have displaced families like yours. Murmurs rippled through the group. Some people shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. But I've learned something these past few weeks, Victoria continued. Learned that there's another way to do business, a way that creates value for everyone, not just shareholders. Miguel leaned forward. What are you saying? I'm saying that I want to help, not just with this building, but with changing how development happens in this neighborhood. Over the next hour, Victoria found herself in the strangest business meeting of her career. Instead of profit projections and market analysis, they talked about community gardens, affordable housing, and small business preservation. Instead of hostile takeovers, they discussed partnerships and profit sharing. We could create a community land trust, Victoria suggested. The residents would have ownership stakes in the buildings, protecting them from displacement while allowing for improvements. What about your board? James asked. Will they support this? Victoria had been dreading that question. No, but I'm going to find out. The next morning, Victoria called an emergency board meeting. She spent the entire night preparing a presentation that would have seemed impossible a month earlier. Instead of pure profit maximization, she proposed a new business model, sustainable community development. The boardroom felt different when she entered. The marble floors and glass walls that had once represented success now felt cold and disconnected from the real world. Gentlemen, Victoria began, addressing the 8 men in expensive suits around the conference table. I want to talk about the future of Sterling Properties. She clicked to her first slide, a photo of the Riverside Community Center's mural. This is where I've spent the past month. It's taught me that our current business model is unsustainable, not financially, but ethically. Robert Hayes frowned. Victoria, what are you saying? I'm saying that we have an opportunity to pioneer a new kind of development. Community-centered, sustainable, profitable for everyone involved. She walked them through her proposal, converting existing projects into mixed-income developments, creating community ownership structures, and establishing a foundation to support displaced families during transitions. The numbers work, Victoria insisted, showing financial projections. We might see lower short-term profits, but we'll build long-term value and eliminate the public relations disasters that have been costing us millions. The room was silent for a long moment. Then board member Richard Thornton spoke up. This is financial suicide, Victoria. Our investors expect maximum returns, not social experiments. Our investors also expect us to avoid the kind of negative publicity that's been tanking our stock price, Victoria countered. The debate continued. For 2 hours, some board members expressed interest in the community land trust model, while others dismissed it as naive idealism. Finally, Robert Hayes called for a vote. "We'll give you 6 months to prove this model works," he said. "But if it fails, we return to traditional development practices." Victoria nodded. "I'll need to convert 3 existing projects as pilots, including the building on Riverside," approved Robert said reluctantly. "But Victoria, this is your career on the line. This fails, you're done." That afternoon, Victoria returned to the community center with news that would change everything. She found James in his office, reviewing budget reports. "We got approval," she announced. "Sterling Properties is going to pilot community-centered development." James looked up, surprised. "What does that mean?" "It means the families in the Riverside building get to stay. It means we'll renovate the building together, creating a mix of affordable and market-rate units. It means the community gets to be part of the process instead of being pushed out by it." For the first time since she'd known him, James was speechless. "There's more," Victoria continued. "I want to hire you as our community development director. Full-time position, competitive salary, benefits. You'd be the liaison between Sterling Properties and the neighborhoods we work in." James leaned back in his chair. "This is really happening? They're really happening?" 6 months later, Victoria stood in the renovated lobby of the Riverside building, watching Rosa Martinez hand keys to her new apartment to her daughter Isabella. The building now housed 40 families, half paying affordable rent, half paying market rate. The ground floor included Tommy's new grocery store, Dakota's art studio, and a satellite office for the community center. "It's not perfect," Victoria admitted to James as they watched the celebration. "We're still learning, still making mistakes. But it's a start." "A start is more than most people get," James replied. Victoria's phone buzzed with a text from Robert Hayes. "Board meeting tomorrow. Early numbers look promising."
Oh.
She smiled, turning back to the celebration. Danny ran up to her, holding a drawing he'd made of the new building. "Look, Miss Victoria, I drew our home." Victoria knelt down to Danny's level, studying the crayon picture. It showed the building surrounded by trees, with stick figures of all different sizes holding hands in front of it. "It's beautiful, Danny. Can I keep it?" "Sure. It's for you anyway." As Victoria walked home that evening, she reflected on the journey that had brought her here. For weeks of mandated community service had become a complete transformation of her life's work. She still lived in her penthouse, still wore expensive suits, still commanded board meetings and negotiated complex deals. But now she also knew the names of the people affected by those deals. She understood that buildings weren't just assets, but homes. She'd learned that true success couldn't be measured only in dollars, but in the lives improved and communities strengthened. The glass tower was still there, but Victoria had built bridges between her world and theirs. And in crossing those bridges, she discovered something she'd never expected to find, a sense of purpose that went beyond profit, in a community that had become her second family. Standing on her balcony that night, looking out over the city, lights, Victoria Sterling smiled. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities to prove that business could be a force for good. But tonight, she was content knowing that somewhere in the city below, 40 families were sleeping in homes they could afford, in a neighborhood they could call their own. The awakening was complete.